Delante, and I am so excited to be here with Rachel Rai Henry. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Val.
How are you?
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Rachel's company is SunRai Consulting Group. Tell us all about SunRai.
Well, Val, thank you for having me again. SunRai Consulting Group is a team of creative professionals, and our focus is to offer full service consulting and helping artists and entrepreneurs really identify their optimal brand strategies. So, we work with performing artists, entrepreneurs alike, and we help you really identify the steps that are necessary in order to be successful in the entertainment industry. We're not limited to entertainment, but we definitely focus on artists and entrepreneurs in that film.
And I think that is something that is critical for entrepreneurs as well as entertainers, and I would even say especially entertainers, because so many times you get so caught up into your craft or your art until you forget that it's a business. And I always say, even me personally, I will tell anybody I am a creative mind, not a business mind. So that's why creative types need people like Ray. So Ray, let's start with some of those steps. What's the first or maybe most key step to maintaining an entrepreneur or an entertainment business?
You know, the first thing is really knowing what you are good at and differentiating yourself from the entire market. I think as artists, when we emerge, I'm an artist myself. So when I started this business, we met when I started an entertainment blog just over a year ago.
Yeah, we did.
And in that time, I was looking to really get myself more involved artistically and take myself out of the business side to make sure that I had a good balance. And so I think that really knowing what your craft is, differentiating yourself is the first step to being successful in entertainment and entrepreneurship.
I agree. I agree. And differentiating yourself is kind of essential, but it's overlooked. It seems like a lot of artists try to blend.
Yes.
You see so much of doing what you see other people do. And so, how does, I think that's backwards.
The trends today in entertainment and in art, we're in the 2014th year. Everything is alike, and it's all about kind of looking at what our peers and competitors are doing, and rather than applying that as kind of motivation for advancing, we look at it and replicate it instead of creating something new.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
we're supposed to focus on individuality, and knowing yourself will help you. Um, some of us want to be singers, performers. Some of us want to be, artists that are performing artists, but some of us are not. And it's not that you cannot explore those crafts, but you
Right.
definitely want to find what you're best at and focus in on that.
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought that out, because I always say the goal is inspiration, not imitation.
Yes.
When you look at other artists, what is another step? The next step or another key step?
Time management. Val, I cannot tell you how many of us
Yes.
suffer from poor time management. We think that we can just be impulsive and not really plan out the steps to our strategy. Strategy is very important as an artist and an entrepreneur, and first as a business owner, to really look at your schedule as it relates to your clients, as it relates to yourself, and really making sure that you are utilizing your time in the most effective way.
Yes.
I think it's okay to carry a planner. It's okay to utilize all of the e-calendars that we have, but at the end of the day, you have to sit down
Right.
and ask yourself how much time you're working with, and check it against how much creative space you're actually going to need. And
Right.
so that's very important, having effective time management.
It is, and as an artist, it's so easy to get lost or distracted. And I think one key to time management is organization, and those planners are critical because you have to keep in mind what you've got to get done. And even for me, I say sometimes I leave what I call goof off time, which is really my creative time, because I'll be doing one thing and I'll get an idea, and I need to at least get it out a little.
You're an artist. You're a true artist. Any artist that I've ever known, including myself, when we get into our most creative realm, the energy and the ideas just come,
Yeah.
they flow, and you have to let time into your space, in order to let that flow, and take the time and like write it down and fill
Yep.
it, record it, and just make sure that you're being in tune with that.
Yep. And I think that that's key, yeah, to time management, and that's been a downfall for me
Well,
for so many years. I think I'm getting it though. So we've got time management, we got differentiation, and what else do we need to know?
consistency is very, very important.
Yes,
Val.
yes.
Consistency in your marketing. Again, I talked about impulse a little while ago, and so when you get excited and you create something as artists, we want to share it. We want people to, we want to tweet it, Facebook it, Instagram it, and say, this is mine, this is my idea, and we know that it's going to inspire the next. But where we go wrong is that we don't take the time and do a little bit of market research before we start branding our websites and our logos and all of our great ideas. So really making sure that you have given yourself a little bit of time to test it with market research. And that can be anything from using an email to reach out to your fans or your supporters, asking them what their thoughts are, to asking your closest family members and friends, is this an accurate depiction of who I am?
Right.
And once you get that feedback, you can then apply it to your brand and really just be consistent. I always believe that there's a test phase for every brand, and that is critical, whether it's 3 months to 6 months. You want to take the time and test it before you launch it. So a soft launch is what I recommend for most things.
And that's true. Even for me, from the graphic design end, I get people who come to me for a logo literally every 6 months. And I'm going, a logo is something that you don't change every 6 months. Now, even my own logo and what I do has evolved, but it's a natural progression.
Yes.
It's not like I went from graphic design to accounting to law to medicine.
Yes.
That I didn't do.
Right.
Everything I started as, designs by Volante or visions by Volante, but it always had that vision, that design, something. And sometimes people jump the gun
Yes.
and they go higher. And it hurts because as a graphic designer, I feel bad if you spent money for me to brand this way, then you totally changed. Now you just spent all this money and I have to charge you again to redo your stuff.
Yes.
I'm not going to do it for free.
Exactly. And Volante, when I started the blog a year ago, the particular graphics that I was using for that, I used that for a while. I found a way to spin it into my logo, which has now evolved. And so it's okay to have a common thread. It's okay to be inspired,
Right.
because that consistency will show, and people that have watched from day one will see something that is similar in that. However, you do have to take the time to remove all inconsistent branding.
Yes.
Give yourself, again, a little bit of time before launching something new. So you'll notice that, and this is a lesson we all have to learn. It's nostalgic, and it feels good to kind of go back and look at the things that you created over the years, but sometimes removing that from the internet,
Yes.
removing that from the public eye, and giving people a fresh palette is the best thing to do.
Exactly, because they have to know who you are and what you do. And I even had that experience with people who I've known, and they go, "So what do you do again?" And I said, "Okay, that's not good. You need,
Exactly.
especially if you're not paying attention, that's one thing. But if you know me, you shouldn't be asking me, what do you do? What is that logo?"
We all
You
go
know?
through that at
Yeah.
some point. And when you come out of that phase into people knowing exactly what you do, it's such a great feeling and an accomplishment.
is. Volante.
Volante. It's all about your belief about who you should. It's work on yourself first, and that is not selfish. That's honoring your cutie pie self.
I would.
Yes.
See that?
I just.
I don't know.
The only one who needs to validate your affirmation is you. I think that bringing Lisa on is where design meets.
I'm telling you, they were all proclaiming the glory of God. The judges
are fabulous after.
There are a group of people who don't just want to be entertained. They want something else.
People, with me, it's the butterfly. When you see that purple butterfly,
You should know.
you should know. When I see your little son, I should know that's Ray. And that's kind of what I think successful branding
Yes.
is. So let's talk a little bit more about your next point, or go from there.
Right before we jump into that, I'd like to just kind of reiterate how important it is that you mentioned your butterfly, my son. You are your best brand. No matter what a graphic designer brings to you, and no matter how your evolution of, logos and graphic design, kind of the trail that it goes along, you will always be your best brand. So you have to really, again, going back to differentiation, look at yourself and say, who am I and how can I reflect that?
Yes.
Successful branding is truly being you and getting that to the masses. It is not manipulating your traits. It is taking your best assets and putting that forth. And so you are like
Love
a
it.
butterfly. You know that's
Thank
your
you.
trait. You are able to spread awareness through your media, and I think that brand is relevant and reflects through your logo.
Glad you brought that out because both of us, I think, have similar things going as our logos reflect our name. My name, Volante, is the feminine form of Voltaire, which means the ability to fly.
Beautiful.
So I am a butterfly.
Yes.
So it is a direct play on my name and my personality. Ray,
I was given
SunRai.
that name not long ago, just a couple years ago, by a really good friend, SunRai, and it is a direct reflection of a few things. First, just illuminating and showing light and
Yes.
shedding light on this kind of education that we need so desperately in the entertainment industry and as business owners. And then secondly, the logo itself is always going to represent me because I go by SunRai on an everyday basis. And so you remember the blog, Everyday SunRai. It's really true to that. And so I really think it's important to keep consistent. And the best way to be consistent is to remain yourself and really be in tune with who you are.
Exactly. Truth and branding. Right. It's easy to be yourself. It's hard to when you're trying to be something else because you
Yes.
got to keep track of it. I'm me all day long. So, even with you, I love interviewing people or talking to people who are passionate about their craft because, yeah, you have notes because you're a professional, but it's
Yes.
here. So it's going to flow
Yes.
and people feel that. It's spiritual, it's genuine. And I think that sometimes people miss that in their marketing. What comes from the heart touches the heart
Always.
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 And that's why we were talking about how you haven't really had to cold market because even when I met you a year ago, that interaction never left. And it's always been in the back of my mind. I've got to connect with Ray.
I'm so
Even
grateful.
though stuff happened, you have that impact. I've got to connect with Ray. And so now here we are.
I'm so grateful.
So am I.
We'll touch on the next topic, but I will say every single person that I've met in the last year has in some way shaped and formed this person I am today.
Great.
And I have literally cultivated those relationships to being what they are here. And so I'm very grateful that you can look at me and see that and have that spiritual connection. We want to separate it sometimes, but our light is what attracts art. It really attracts that art to us and that success. So we're examples of that. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you for being here.
One of the last things that I want to talk about, the most important thing, in my opinion, is business and finance. We are
Starving artist.
I do not believe in the starving
Right.
artist, and I will say that until the very end. Our lives should reflect our livelihood, and our livelihood should be reflected in our income. And
Definitely.
and I think that you have to have an understanding of how cash flow and discipline relates to your success. Whether you have $5 or $500 to start you off with your your entrepreneurship, it's critical that you have a plan of action for how that will work. So some of the tips that I recommend in business and finance, just some basic tips to track your spending. Are you taking the time to budget effectively? And budgeting is not having an accountant. Budgeting is not having someone tell you what you're doing. It's really taking the time to look at your cash and all your other sources of income and where it's going, really taking the time to look at it. And on the most simple, basic scale, my 13-year-old brother, or 14 now, who is starting his own business for the first time, I'm watching and saying, what are you doing with the money? Are you taking the time to put money aside? Are you creating some kind of protection for yourself in the event that that money is needed for something? And I had to learn that a very hard way. Starting a business, you get excited, you jump in, but you don't really have the action plan. So you're spending more money than you're actually, bringing in. And that is what will happen for the first few years if you're not careful. So tracking your spending, know what you have, know where it is, and know where it's going. Another tip is to create a strategy for your money and for your income. And so strategy is just truly an action plan. So if you know that your money, your cash flow kind of flows in on a consistent basis, then you should save on a consistent basis. If you know that you're not really able to predict where the money is coming in or where the income is flowing, then you have to put aside larger amounts and hold yourself accountable for that. And at the end, it's really about just kind of protecting those assets, diversifying your portfolio, which is, putting your eggs in a few baskets and watching it grow and giving yourself a little bit of time before you touch it. And don't be afraid. I would honestly say don't be afraid to invest into new ventures. Try partnerships and joint ventures when they come. Small risk investments are really, really important for small businesses. And I mean, there's a wealth of income to artists today. There's grants that are available to us every single day that we do not know about. There is small business loans that are available to us from banks and institutions that want and have the responsibility to give that money to us. And so we really just have to know where those resources are. And so in the future, I hope that you and I can work together to bring those resources to the light and, continue to help Chicago and the world at large really tap into those resources.
Definitely. And there's also investors. I know I was talking to somebody about a idea my daughter had. And she looked at me and she goes, "Oh, that's a great idea. You're going to need investors. Come to me." And I went, and I wasn't ready. And I'm going, so I had somebody just say she wants to invest and I have nothing together.
That is
It's
so
just, I'm
important.
like, what? And I'm looking like, you really want to give me money?
One of the core services that we offer, our core services with SunRai Consulting Group is strategic marketing and planning, project management,
Yes.
event coordination, and then administrative development. And in those areas of focus, we want to make you attractive to investors. And there are many different types of investors, but at the end of the day, knowing who your shareholders are going to be, knowing who your core market is and making yourself attractive to them is the first step to really bringing in that kind of revenue that you really so desire to back your project. Endorsements and sponsorships are the easiest way for you to be successful as an entertainer. You do not, in my opinion, when you're looking for a venue to perform in, you should have valuable assets that would want them to ask you to come and perform rather than having to pay for the venue. And so I like to teach my clients how to become valuable assets.
Right.
And that starts with basic things like contracts and proposals and knowing how to write. And so we really, really like to spend time with each of our clients one-on-one and understand what their needs are and give them a true plan for success.
Definitely. Let's go back to something that you said. You said your core market. Let's talk a little bit about your core market as it relates to entertainment.
Yes.
Because I see that personally as a huge weakness for a lot of entertainers.
So for SunRai Consulting Group, our core market is performing artists. And we gear all of our work towards helping them become successful brands and entrepreneurs. They are not separate. We do not believe that you can be an artist and not be a business. And
Can you say that again real slow?
At SunRai Consulting Group, we do not believe that you can be an artist and be separate from being a business entity as well. They are one and the same. In today's world, we have to have a balance between artistic creation and business savvy. So, we want our clients to have a good understanding of what it looks like to know what your income is, to know how it relates to how much you're going to be putting into your art versus your living expenses. And so that's my core audience. It's performing artists, and it's developing them not just into a brand, but into a successful business. Walking away saying that I'm a sole proprietor, or I'm a limited liability company, or I am, a joint venture, whatever it is that you might want to be. We help you identify the strengths and weaknesses of those things and really play off of your assets to create that.
Awesome.